and that was very easy, wasn't it? That was so simple. That was simple.
Who would have technology? It's pretty. If there's one thing that's coming out of this environment, it's technology progression. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, it certainly is. And I think I had a call with someone the other day, and it was the first time they've used Zoom. And so, what do you usually use?
Personally, I've found out about this app called Housemates, which I actually recommend highly for everyone who might be in isolation like myself. But from a business perspective, we've got everybody on Microsoft Teams, which is working really well. So do you want to, are we straight in?
We are live. We're live. We are ready to rumble, mate. We are warmed up. We are coffee in hand and caffeinated and ready to rumble. So Troy Douglas.
All the things.
Oh, nice. What's that?
Nothing.
Tell me what you're drinking there. A bit of a kombucha.
Well, I'll introduce myself, Lockie.
Okay.
But, my name's Troy Douglas. I'm a big fan of the man that I'm speaking with. So thank you for having me to have a bit of a yarn with yourself, Lockie.
Good to have you on board. So, Troy, what we like doing straight up is sharing a bit of a quote.
It's an interesting one. I actually typically always share something that was instilled within myself and Drew, my business partner, from a guy we call the godfather of Nexba, Peter Barron. He's a absolute superstar in my life, and he used to tell us that success is the byproduct of doing business right. But then I was actually just thinking about the word success in the context of COVID and being in isolation. I think that during this time, it's kind of what is like, survival, and survival and staying together and staying connected will be ultimately what helps us all get through in a positive way. So let's do things right. Let's listen to what we need to do. Let's lock this down, and hopefully we can all come through strong.
Right. And the core to survival, you said, is it about staying connected? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's just the quote is success is the byproduct of doing business right. So I think just the byproduct of anything, if you do things right, you're ultimately going to have a better outcome. So I think that stays true with now as well. Like, these are the obviously unprecedented, really uncertain times. Having conversations with people all the time, which are quite full on and intense. So I think it's more important than ever that we support each other.
Totally. So, sometimes when people hear doing business right, it can be quite a vague term. And, doing business right, how do you know, like, is it a gut feeling? Is it like a code of conduct? Is it you guys living and breathing your values in Nexba? How does that, what is doing business right? Like, it sounds great, but,
I think what you've touched on is it's a mentality for how I think I like to live my life. And I think ultimately all we have is ourselves as our ultimate source of guide. So I think within yourself, if you are living to your true values, in a business sense, people like Ray Dalio talk about the principles of building a business. And when you learn, or when you have values, you get a learning each time, and that sets a new principle. And that can be what you can then define as doing business right, because you've taken that key insight and that learning and applied it in a new way. So I think that's what I kind of reference from that. So don't be a dick, be a nice guy.
Nice. And I guess, you think about, I'd love for everyone to kind of hear about, if you don't mind giving a bit of a background story, where's Nexba's come from, to the ideas back in South America, to, the challenges you've had over time and where we're at now. And then we'll maybe speak a little bit more specifically around this, what's transpired in the last 2 weeks. But yeah, do you mind just giving everyone a bit of a background about the Nexba story?
No, absolutely. So Nexba is a 9 years going 10-year journey. So my background is law and communications. My business partner's background, Drew Bilby, he's also my brother-in-law, background is engineering, and he what I guess Lockie referenced in terms of Ida in Mexico is he was on exchange in a place called Rio Nexba, where he visited a beach called Rio Nexba, and then he came back to Australia after spending some time there, and was, I guess, inspired by the breadth of variety in better for you and products that existed over there in comparison to Australia. And he tapped me on the shoulder. Personally, always been passionate about brands and business, and having also had some pretty powerful experiences of going to remote communities and things and seeing the impact that sugar in particular can have on people's diets. I agreed that there's an opportunity to create better for you products. So we began in iced tea. We imported a little canning line, as you do, with knowing nothing about the industry. And we went out, set up a little factory, made our first 100,000 cans of iced tea, and then started knocking on doors to try and get sales. So I think that we began in that better for you kind of mission and space, and it transpired to Nexba's, I guess, vision today is to be Australia's naturally brave brand and deliver naturally sugar-free innovations to the world. And I guess the mission and driver for us existing is we know that by making naturally sugar-free products available, we can have a significant impact on removing both sugar and artificial ingredients from consumption. And then that has obviously a quantified impact on people's health and well-being. So today, Nexba's in a unique, like it's weird sitting here. I'm currently day 7 in isolation with my beautiful husband, Blake Bowden in Bondi, because he flew in from New Zealand. And we're very blessed as a business because what could have been seen as a significant risk to our business a few weeks ago in terms of concentration on being in key big retailers like Coles and Woolworths, and in the UK, Sainsburys, is ironically the thing that's keeping our cash flows and business in quite a strong position during this period. So it's an interesting one. So now Nexba is, after 6 years, we cracked the ability of the taste of naturally sugar-free, and then we've been able to apply that into multiple products. So you walk down a beverage aisle, if there's stuff on the shelves at the moment, and we've got soft drinks, sparkling waters, tonic waters, kombucha, gone into much more of a gut health space as well. So our whole thing is just making, we genuinely believe that every category within a market, there's no excuse for artificial sweeteners to be in those products anymore. So it takes emerging young brands to be first with naturally sugar-free product alternatives within a category that can hopefully then encourage a multinational shift to creating products that are healthier for everyone. So that's who we are.
I love it.
That ramble. You should have cut in. I was just rambling.
No, I love that, and I think the funny thing is, obviously, I'm quite aware of that journey, but I think people hearing, how many years ago was it that you and Drew were in Nexba? Is that the name of the place?
Yeah, so very Nexba. Yeah, it was. Well,
Nexba.
Drew was there, I guess, 10 years ago.
10 years. Is this your 10-year anniversary this year, 2020?
Yeah, in October it'll be our anniversary, 7th of October.
I can't wait for the party.
Hopefully we're still not in lockdown, but you never know.
Exactly. So this thing that kind of hearing it, because the iced tea that you created initially, that wasn't 100% sugar free, was it? So what was the that tipping point where you and Drew were like, right, let's shift to sugar free. What was there, like a real personal experience behind that? Because really that's quite a shift in the business model. Previously, like real flavoursome iced tea that was unique and everything. But what was that kind of tipping point which made you obviously invest like hundreds of thousands of dollars into developing a patented sugar-free kind of product? So what was kind of, they obviously had a bit of a story behind that.
Yeah, I think it was a gradual progression. So Drew and I knew that we wanted to be the first brand to crack naturally sugar-free. And what we had seen in the industry is sugar got exposed from a research perspective and the impact that sugar has on people's lives. So that got picked up by the media and exposed. And then what we then saw in the industry was multinationals were replacing sugar with artificial ingredients. Our first products were sugar and stevia based. So stevia is a natural sweetener, and it is in our proprietary blend today. But one thing that brands kept on failing on was taste, and having, I think, the naivety that Drew and I brought as young guys trying to crack and create a business, it meant that the one thing that we didn't want to compromise on was what we liked. So taste was critical to us. So that's why it took a gradual progression. So it literally was thousands of flavor iterations until we cracked the ratios and the ingredients that we used that replicates that mouthfeel and taste of sugar. So I think it was just a matter of, we weren't willing to put something in market that compromised taste. So we took our time, like coming out with the stevia and sugar iced tea when we began. Like in the beginning, it was literally just Lipton and Nestea. Our first customer that we landed was 7-Eleven. They were both packed in sugar in 500 ml PET bottles and same flavors. So Drew and I came out with cans, unique flavors, watermelon, things like that, that weren't in the market. And what we then knew is when brands copy and there's no real differential between Lipton and Nestea, one brand will stay, and that was Lipton. Then Nestea kind of went away, and then Nexba took that space. And then when you're in a market like food and beverage, it is really about having a unique differentiation that gets you that shelf space. And then ultimately, if your products stack up and they taste great, the best thing you can then drive is taste loyalty. And that's when you get loyal and advocate consumers that really believe in your product and your brand. And that's why Drew and I and our Nexba team are truly blessed by the people that back and enjoy our products. They want more. So we're fortunately getting more space for that.
Happy days. And so I guess, leading from that, point of difference to being this sugar-free option, it's then led into you end up getting a big break into some of the major retail outlets like Woolworths and Coles. Yeah. So that was a big turning point for you guys. Was that when you came out with this patented technology, sugar-free, naturally sugar-free?
Yeah, so we were already in Coles with our iced tea. Ultimately, the products we began with don't exist anymore. So when we did have the ability to be naturally sugar-free, we had a gentleman also join our journey, and is a big part of the story, Steve Smythe. He was ex-PepsiCo, came on board, and we knew that we wanted to craft those relationships with the retailers. And I guess the secret for us has always been to innovate through our relationships with retailers. So what we did do is, when we had that naturally sugar-free capability, we thought, within the market, what is the biggest category that's causing the biggest harm on a health perspective? So that's clearly soft drinks. And we wanted to reinvent soft drinks and be that naturally sugar-free alternative. So I guess that's what we did. And we're very fortunate that Coles joined and believed in that vision. And we launched with those guys. And then the next innovation came through our relationships with Woolworths with sparkling waters. So we crafted sparkling waters, launched that with them. And then in terms of scaling and growth, like Nexba's been doubling year on year for the past 4 years, and we're continuing to do that. And that's when you have one customer with a product that's getting traction, then you can kind of cross-pollinate, and that drives your volume up and allows people to greater access.
And one of the beautiful things, thanks for sharing that. I think, these insights around how you've built this product from two guys who haven't had much experience in the industry to continually innovating with the retailers. I really like that kind of, would you say, like co-creation, saying what is it that you need that we can maybe create and work towards? I think that's a really kind of, rather than arrogantly kind of coming in, this is the new age of products and this is the future and la-da-da-da. But just hearing you say that, it's really interesting, because I think a lot of people get so caught up in their own product because they're so passionate about it. And I think I've always heard you say that. Yeah.
I think you need to be willing to, you do need to innovate or die. And I think over time that you get certain products that absolutely fire and work. And then that's when you need to put your energy into those. But everything changes. None of us thought kombucha would be a big category, but we're now the leading ambient kombucha brand. So I think that trends change and you need to try and be at the forefront, and you need to be willing to give things a crack and then remove them if they don't work. Like you may have heard of like Ben and Jerry's have a graveyard of products. So does Nexba, and we're a 9 years business. But ultimately a lot of those flavors and things, you can then bring them back and it can become quite of a exciting journey in that respect.
So when you say you're like a leader in kombucha, like, can you share with the crew some figures around how many kombuchas you've been since you, oh, there it is, since you've launched, like how long ago since you launched, and, you know, what, with the retail outlets you've got globally, like what are the volumes? Are you able to share some of that info?
Yeah, so kombucha is I think the latest stats is it's nearly 120 million retail sales category within Australia. Next was become the ambient. So with that space, there's a lot of great brands out there. I think that where our opportunity in the technology that we've got by being naturally sugar-free, the other technology we've got in our kombucha is we use Bacillus coagulans, which means that our probiotic is super robust and survives the journey to your gut. So, and that allowed us to be one of the first brands to go ambient, because typically you would see probiotic-based products in chilled. The beauty of Nexba is we could have the efficacy and we could actually put it in an ambient aisle. So when we had that, we knew we wanted to do that. We then crafted with the retailers, and it was Nexba and another brand that, in terms of, I don't mention Remedy, and Nexba went into the market, and we started to build that ambient category, and it has taken off. So we've gone from 3 sort of SKUs when we launched in terms of glass 4 packs. We've now got, I think, 5 or 6 of those flavors. We've got a 1 litre range. We've got a new functional range as well, which is things like tepache and kefir, which again are good gut-based products. The whole key to Nexba is we're obviously naturally sugar-free, and because of that blend, when you taste our products in the kombucha space, I think why we're getting so much traction is we taste just like the delicious flavors that's on the bottle. So I think that's the secret to part of our success.
And you've also been diversifying a little bit, like, you know, a few people at home right now wouldn't mind a GT. So you've also got some tonics, yeah?
Yeah, it's pretty nuts, our tonics. I think the latest sales read I read yesterday are up 71%. So yeah, it's tonics a product again, which is loved by people in gyms, particularly in the UK. It's become a massive spirits drink. And people don't necessarily realize, but typical tonics got a higher sugar content than a Coca-Cola, as an example. So for us, we're very passionate to enter that space and to bring out a great tasting tonic that is naturally sugar-free. So that's available in little cans in Coles and Woolies as well.
Can you still can you buy the product online direct to you guys, or it's just purely through the retailers?
Yeah, I think it's super fascinating, particularly in the time we are now. Like the Nexba, we built our business over 9 years very traditionally. So we are in major retail chains, and online has not been a big source of business for us, particularly because Australia is quite behind in online. So if I was to think about how do we come out of this period of lockdown and isolation, what could that mean for businesses, particularly in actually all businesses? I think the consumption behaviors will shift. I know that within China, when the SARS epidemic happened previously, because they actually had lockdown, there was a direct timing change in terms of how consumers purchased, and a lot of online behaviors came about, particularly for food and beverage. And Australia's never experienced the world hasn't experienced what we're experiencing right now, except for maybe 100 years ago with Spanish flus and things like that. But I think what will happen is the behaviour in online purchasing and food and beverage will change. I think that clearly Australia, due to the size and the population, we've got some logistic challenges, and there needs to be some great businesses coming through in terms of direct distribution to homes. You can already see globally that Amazon's driving this space, and I think for us is making, and this is happening live as we speak this week, I think all our products are getting listed on Amazon this week, particularly because of the nature of the time that we're in.
Totally. Well, I guess before we start going into iyarn, I feel like, we have had our hour-long yarn since only the beginning of the day here, and you're the CEO of a global company, so I don't need to hold you up too much. But
I still remember Lockie. I still remember you coming around. I don't know if people know, but Lockie and I lived together for a period of time. And another mentor and close friend of both of ours, Adrian Hondras, who's a superstar himself. He introduced us both, and he was like, "Can you please meet this guy from Perth? He's moving to Sydney." And I remember being like, "Yeah, sure I will." But he came over, had a beer, laid on a pretty thick sob story that he had no home in Sydney, and next minute he took over my spare bedroom in the apartment I'm currently sitting in.
Yeah, you know what? I'm a hustler. I'm a true-blood entrepreneur. I see opportunity, I'll jump on it, brother.
No, but what makes me smile about this conversation we're having right now, though, is the reason why I let Lockie move in with me is because he pulled out a piece of paper and we drew a life wheel in our first meeting. And he started interrogating me in almost full goal setting. So I think I knew that I could get along with Lockie Cook, that's for sure.
For sure, man. Well, before we get on to talking about iyarn and that, is there, with the business yourself, do you see, like, obviously you do a lot of strategy planning, foresight planning with stock take and how much, of the nutrients you need for your products and ordering them in advance and things like that. Like, essentially, how, was there capital raises that you're looking at doing? Have you put them on hold? Are you still going ahead there? What does that space look like for you? Or is it still a bit unknown?
I think any founder of a business, it's kind of our role I heard someone speak about this recently. We live in a very unnatural state because you've got to be at the forefront of optimism to drive, I guess, the right leadership within your team. But then you've also got to be completely in the detail of what are the worst things that could come at you and how do you ensure that you've thought through as many processes to ensure that you've got a cash runway, all this type of stuff that you typically need to manage through what could be difficult times. I don't think anyone predicted what we're experiencing now. I was only speaking to a friend of mine in the UK who's got an amazing business in the Millie Harvey from the collective in the UK, and we both, obviously no one expected what we're doing right now. So what I think that's important in this period is more communication than ever, getting your leadership together and scenario planning for things that could impact you. So as you said, Lockie, for Nexba, that would be things like manufacturing outbreak. How do you handle if stuff happens there? The distribution infrastructure, if there's any challenges there. Cash, there's obviously a lot of opportunities also coming from the government in terms of supporting businesses through this period. So you need your finance directors, etc., to be delving in and looking into that stuff, listening to as much stuff. You've actually got more time. I think me personally, I'm so used to being on a plane every single week. Like, it's crazy to think that I'm now locked in and doesn't look like I'll be flying anywhere before June. I was expecting to be in the UK, and between the UK and New York, Nexba is in high growth. We are looking to get a serious growth capital partner to come on the next phase of the journey. We're in no rush to do that, but it's an interesting circumstances of events that has meant that a lot of how our interactions are now is via being online. I think Next was fortunate that Drew Bilby, my business partner, probably 9 months ago, was crafting what's the best systems that we can operate within the business. We're using Microsoft Teams, and it's about setting up those regular chats and conversations and huddles within each business unit, having the broader team stuff, still having your Friday drink, so to speak, or happy hour, and you have that on Microsoft Teams in the afternoon on Friday, and everyone can connect in. because I think
remotely.
yeah, everyone can connect remotely. Like everyone's, and it's intense. Yeah, like people, Nexba is blessed to be in the industry that we're in, but we know that people that work for us, people at home aren't so lucky. My beautiful husband, Book of Mormon in New Zealand, obviously any musical theatre and ridiculously talented artists in the world has been, they currently can't work because you physically can't go watch. So that's pretty intense and trying. So it's a matter of not appreciating that, but even within your little network, people that you, in your life, there will be people within their house that currently don't have income. And that causes super stresses. So it's about taking day by day and managing through this process together.
Totally. Well, thanks for that. And I think that's a real good insight to kind of, for a lot of business owners and people in business and employees, even who are tuning in, you know, there's a bunch of different variables here. And I guess trying to, you know, stay positive in these really testing times, and trying to keep, as you said, that degree of routine, the sense of community with your organization, doing those Friday drinks and things like that. And I think what we might do now is we kind of get onto this personal management phase, and is your iyarn. And obviously you've given a bit of context around iyarn, you and I, how when we first met, all of a sudden I pulled out a piece of paper and we did it, and you know, we were strangers, and then, you know, I think both of our willingness to be vulnerable, that built connection, that all of a sudden I felt like you're a brother to me over such a short period of time, because we did this, we had a commitment to each other, but a commitment to, really, I think it really came actually thinking about that commitment to ourselves, that we're willing to be vulnerable with people who create safe spaces for us to be vulnerable and can have that conversation. And all of a sudden that, I felt, really sped up our relationship to be best buddies.
Yeah,
which is kind of cool, like
100%.
actually talking it out loud now. But you know, you and Blake, obviously your lovely, beautiful husband who's in the room with you right now, you shared a iyarn with me earlier today. Do you mind just showing the screen? I think we'll talk through it more so. I'll look at it here as well, in my screen.
We've got,
yeah.
It's called Dugden, just for context for everyone. So that's a merging of, so Blake, a bit about Blake and myself, where I'm very fortunate to have him in my life, and we're part of a beautiful rainbow family. So there's two lovely ladies in Melbourne who are the mums to Blake's four biological boys. Dugden's just simply, my last name is Douglas, Blake's last name is Bowden. But yeah, we created a little iyarn wheel just for us to check in. We did it this morning. I think that it's interesting, when I was reflecting on iyarn and knowing that we're going to have a conversation this morning. I recently was listening to a podcast and talked about, I can't actually remember, I think it might have been Patrick Collison. He said that the future is already here, but it's not evenly distributed. So I think that it's amazing. So much of technology has built isolation and distance within people. And I think that why I'm passionate about what you're doing, Lockie, is about how can we then actually use technology to bring people back together and create a conversation flow and connectedness. And that's and now to see it come together on a wheel, and then think, how could, within my role as a founder of Nexba, how could I use this potentially as a tool with my team? And that's where it's about that. So much of work life has previously been, because of HR policies, that you don't want to get involved with people's personal lives. But the reality is work is personal, and it is a big part of our lives. So I think that if there's a way to help ease or make the conversation smoother, and for people in a more broad sense, then that's a really powerful thing.
Oh, it's a powerful reflection. Thanks for sharing that.
It's okay.
So I guess in doing that, like, you've shared a personal iyarn here, but you obviously use this, you can see using this in your organization as well. Yeah. So
Yeah, so
that's something you've been doing?
yeah, so especially in this period at the moment, if I'm trying to work out what's the best way within our business to do so. The current thought, and I'm happy to work with work with you on this as well, and I need to have our leadership team align on as well. But I think that if myself as a founder who can be quite more removed from the operational side of our Australian business in particular, I can almost do iyarn, Nexba personal check-ins through our values and some of the drivers that we have in our business. So Nexba is an example, 5 drivers of our business are availability, awareness, happiness, governance, and innovation. So you can, by the power of just a simple rating, what it does is allows you to then ask the simpleness of what is it that led you to put that at 8 or whatever, and it's then just listening that you then allow somebody a safer environment to reflect and share why they did do that. And it's that inside of listening that can potentially be really powerful for your business and how you can operate with that person.
Totally. So with your one, we've just got a few more minutes here before we're going to cut off, because I know you've got a meeting to run off to. I'm just looking at your personal one. So something that did stand out, so physicals up at a 9, relationships at 8.7, well-being 7.3, professional 7.8, financial 7.1, spiritual 7.5. For me, looking at this as your buddy, you know, what's shifted for you? Physical is generally, you're like, I guess, is this you're like, oh, Lockie, you know, the reason why you moved in with me is that you could be my personal trainer, and all of a sudden
it was meant to turn me into an 8-pack, and I went to a 4. But
that was better than it was before.
I think Blake, my partner, has been on tour of 3.5 years. We're having more time together in quarantined isolation with day 7 than we've ever had before, but we're being quite strict with checking with each other and we've downloaded different apps, Centre included, in terms of physical stuff, so we're doing that daily. The reason why financial is the lowest there is mainly because I didn't expect to be having my partner back, so like obviously him being back home has changed our structure a bit, and we're just making that plan. And the world of people who have Airbnb properties or that type of stuff, that environment changed as well. But it's not a bad thing. We're incredibly fortunate in this period, absolutely. So I'm not, but and that's the thing about the life wheel that I also think about is what it does do is it helps people who haven't done this type of stuff regularly get more of a bit of a self-awareness and the power of reflection, which for some people could be confronting and new, but I think nobody will ever have a complete will because then they're not self-reflecting properly. If they do, it means they're not truly appreciating or listening to what's inside them. So I think that's what's important about the regularity and the power of having that, looking at it a lot.
So looking at it consistently, that's what you're saying? So consistently checking in, what's your best practice for this? Like, do you see this as a daily practice, weekly, fortnight, monthly?
It depends. It depends, like in our this is a personal wheel. Prior to iyarn, Blake and I have been doing monthly check-ins, financial check-ins, just life check-ins. I've always been a bit of a goal setter, so we do that stuff. From a work perspective, I would have thought that monthly is positive, but now given the environment, it could be worthwhile doing this stuff weekly, and even just the regularity of encouraging and prompting people, because you can feel, I think many founders of businesses can feel isolated all the time, and that's okay, and you get good at feeling that way. It's challenging and it's tough, but I think now in this period, the concern is, are your team feeling isolated? So I think that you need to talk even more and you need to check in even more. So I would, like, as an example, we would only typically have a leadership huddle once a week. We're now doing that 3 times a week via Teams. And I think iyarn proposes a tool that you can actually prompt a conversation when you do check in. If people actually go through and rate how the drivers are performing, then you can check in on that in a more profound way or speedier way, because ignore the stuff that's down and just ask the question of why something's lower.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. So with the last few minutes that we've got here, is there anything kind of other little insights around how you feel you can have an effective iyarn? Like, you know, for me, I've always felt I can feel quite comfortable to do it with you, and I think both of us, but like, have there been people in your life who you'd like to do an iyarn with, but you've had some resistance to it for whatever reason? Are there any kind of tools or techniques around how you can kind of introduce it to, like, for example, your team, how you frame it to be safe for your team to give this feedback and check in like this?
I think now's the perfect time to be iyarning with as many people as you want. One personal, and we're all I'm definitely guilty of saying I'm too busy to do things. The reality is I'm now probably got more time than I've ever had because I'm not traveling. So there's no reason to not be able to have an iyarn with someone. I think that it can appear an uncomfortable thing to have a personal and vulnerable conversation. I would say to everybody that if you are wanting to live a life of high growth and fullness, then being vulnerable is the best way to do that. And like, you can read many business books, and some of the biggest and most successful leaders that we know are those that are willing to be passionate and show and be vulnerable and share what they're feeling and how they're feeling. And because that automatically, when you're sharing something that's painful or you're worried about, you automatically get a connectedness that's deeper. So get iyarning, tap into your parents. It is a weird time. None of us knows. Are we going to be here for 6 months, 12 months? I hope that the vaccine and stuff gets out there soon. I'm just worried about industries, and I think we all need to support. And everyone's worried about certain financial pressures, but we also do need to support those and still spend money if we can, because otherwise there'll always be people doing it worse than yourself. I feel like this is a bit of a downer here. I feel like I need to be pepped up.
No, mate, you got me. We'll do we got to check in our personal iyarn. We get to do that, so we'll have that. But mate, I think we better wrap up here. Thank you so much for the check-in. I think big shout out to Nexba. Where can people follow you?
Obviously the Instagram and Facebook, LinkedIn. We're going to do
Douglas.
more of that. Yeah, but and you can find the stuff in Coles and Woolworths. But keep healthy, stay safe, and let's dominate, everybody.
You. Oh God. Hey, we'll wrap it up there.